What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we'll be taking a look over here at the Bitcoin price chart, along with the total market cap of the cryptocurrency market, the altcoin market, Ethereum, XRP, and the Bitcoin dominance as we're coming off of last Friday's epic move over there in broader markets where the Dow Jones broke out into a new all-time high, the Russell 2000 cracked through the 786 Fibonacci retracement, and tried to look forward and ahead of what this market could dish out here in the short-term to medium-term future. Now, of course, throughout the weekend, we had some exciting things happen. Now, on Friday afternoon, we had Ethereum set a brand new all-time high above the peak of 2021 coming off of that Russell 2000 breakout, that Dow Jones breakout. Wasn't really quite able to do very much with it heading into the weekend. It was just kind of a sideways weekend until we got to yesterday on Sunday, to which then it broke out into another brand new all-time high, followed by a massive liquidation that happened throughout the entire cryptocurrency market, where nearly $1 billion was wiped out with leveraged players here in the crypto market. As it's speculated, one entity sold like 20-something thousand Bitcoins in pretty much one shot and liquidated the books. Now, as we kick off Monday, we start the new week over here in the stock market. Not a whole lot going on here in stocks. You've got half of them in green, half of them in red. The indexes are the same. The NASDAQ is up slightly. The S&P is essentially flat. Then you have the Dow Jones down 200 points and the Russell down 12 points as it's just kind of teetering down off of Friday's massive breakout. But of course, the thing that's interesting about Bitcoin is there's Bitcoin's big break. Bitcoin then goes on and sets a new low, unlike the Russell, unlike the Dow, unlike even the total market cap of crypto, and even the altcoin market, which is still well off of that breakout that happened back there. XRP is still well off of that break that happened there on Friday. And while Ethereum did have a big pullback, it as well is still above that break that happened there on Friday morning when Powell essentially insinuated that we're going to be seeing rate cuts on September 17th. But with Bitcoin's continued weakness, it just begs the point, are we already seeing the top of Bitcoin coming in here? A lot of those questions are really going to get answered for me to see if we actually do hold this $109,000 price level over in here for Bitcoin, just to see if it's some type of previous all-time high back test, or if we're going to continue doing these things where we just dip down in here and continue just shuffling down to eventually go into some type of retrace. Frankly, I think you could argue either way, but that it's going to be a breadth opening throughout the cryptocurrency market. Just simply even based on what we're seeing over here in the Bitcoin dominance over here on the monthly. We talked about this earlier in the month that we could even see this thing flip over in here in August. Definitely by September, but the MACD has already even started to cross over here on the Bitcoin dominance. And so you only really have this happen in two different situations. You have it when Bitcoin's either going into an expansion or when Bitcoin's producing a top. And there's distribution and rotation happening out of Bitcoin, and it's transitioning into the altcoin market. We spent a lot of time also looking at the weekly timeframes as well. You can see how weak the relative strength index is in here for the Bitcoin dominance. We haven't seen this since back in 2021. I also showed this is how this happened back in 2021. And this is actually where the top of Bitcoin came in right in here, well before we ever saw the bottom of the dominance ever actually happen or the top of the altcoin market come in. So I think it's still wishy-washy for me to be fully convicted on which one Bitcoin's going to do right now until we see if there's some strong bounce that comes out of here for Bitcoin to then ultimately produce a 5-wave structure, or if we see evidence that it's going to crack through in here and then get back down into these levels to then go into a retrace and then roll over. Still, a lot could happen in between those. Hard to tell, but we got the things that we want to see over in here for macro, for breadth to open up in markets. And the last time that we had this happen over here with breadth opening was back over here in November. And for those who remember correctly, the preceding 30 days were very exciting there for the altcoin market. Regardless of this pullback that happened in here for the Russell, this was the time to shine for the altcoins. So now we're just kind of waiting for some evidence to happen over in here for that altcoin market to bust out of its all-time high and prove that as well. And whether or not I'm going to be looking for any type of top coming for the altcoin market if Bitcoin's able to produce a parabola and then bail here, or if Bitcoin's going to prove, hey, it's actually done, and then into this retrace and bail here. Neither one of them have presented themselves to say which way it's going to go. But when things like this happen over here in the United States stock market, it tends to be very positive for breadth opening. So It's definitely like an exciting time in the market. And we're certainly seeing those types of structures happen over in here for the altcoin market, especially on things like Ethereum, XRP, and Binance Coin. And like the rest of the market, just kind of like the mid caps and small caps are waiting for the signal to say it's go time, which technically, from a macro perspective, it seems like we've already gotten it. But questionable if we're just having to do a little bit of recovering here after an illiquid Sunday margin call, which we tend to see these quite often where prices can move aggressively on illiquid weekends. And that's exactly what we got. And of course, we're having to kind of pay the consequences of that today. But it's not unusual even for things like this and these structures where we have these crash, retrace, reaccumulation, and like your C19 crash back to the highs to go stab at it a couple of times before you're able to actually penetrate and full-blown breakout. That wouldn't be surprising if that's all this is here for Ethereum. And then, of course, that's like the jump start where everything just goes completely kaboom at that moment. But in the coming days and weeks, trying to kind of figure out, is this going to end up being some type of thing with Bitcoin where it's a parabola and it all kind of tops together? Or does it end up being a retrace like we saw in 2021 and in 2017 where everything tops into that retrace? And that's just kind of what we're waiting on right now when it comes to a signal from Bitcoin. I really hate predicting time. It's what everybody wants to hear is time predictions. Like people could absolutely care less about price predictions if you can give me a time prediction, right? But if these things end up being accurate as they historically are, and we do see this market kickstart and fire off here in the next few days, and if Bitcoin is producing some type of top happening in here, that typically means we're in the final 30 days of this market. We'll track that as that progresses. I'm not a day trader. I don't tend to make a lot of different moves in my portfolio. And frankly, when we get near the end of September, nearly everything in my portfolio will be in long-term capital gains tax status, which means rather than paying 40% taxes on my gains, I'll only be paying 20% taxes on my gains. That's how little I touch my stuff. But I'm definitely going to be paying attention to all of these things in the coming weeks to where I will likely be taking action on my portfolio and locking some stuff in. Right now, I don't have enough evidence in here for me to say that I need to do anything at this moment, especially not the first trading day after we break out of the 786 Fibonacci retracement level for the Russell 2000 or over here for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Nothing's changed on other things we've talked about either, like Solana, which I don't even really own very much of. So if this thing goes to the moon, it's not like it's going to benefit me, but I know that this is reflective of the entire cryptocurrency market, that really it's just not doing anything unusual of what you would expect still before there becomes a bigger break to happen in here. But being mindful that if this thing kickstarts right now, which it historically does after moments like this, that being pretty mindful over the next 30 days that there's probably action that I'm going to be taking. Just whether or not it's going to be a bounce here from Bitcoin and then we're doing it into a parabola or we're doing it into some type of retrace. And really right here at this exact moment with the Bitcoin dominance just getting ready to cross. Not quite time, but I'm mindful that that time likely is coming pretty soon. And I will say that if it upsets you to think about the idea of Bitcoin producing some type of top, whether there's still a little parabola or it's a bounce and a retrace happening in here, if you're an altcoin holder and if you have studied this market in any way over the course of the last 10 to 15 years, you should know there's really only two times there ever becomes excitement that happens in the altcoin market. And it happens when Bitcoin is either breaking out from a multi-year bear market and expanding, or when it's producing a top and there's rotations that are happening throughout the market. We've already gone through the expansion part. That was in November and December of last year. We're past that. Bitcoin's, at $110,000 to $120,000 now. Breaking through the 60s and 70s was the expansion. That's where XRP goes from 50 cents to $3. You don't have any other evidence of how alt seasons or rotations happen unless if you're producing a Bitcoin top. And so right now, it's just trying to determine how is that going to look? Is it going to look with 109 holding and then there's 5 waves? Or is it going to look like a retracement like May of 2021 or January of 2018? Because I can almost guarantee that your favorite altcoin topped either in those moments, right? Of course, we had a couple of them go a little bit higher in November of 2021, like Ethereum, Solana, etc. But 90% of the market topped either in April or in May of 2021 as Bitcoin was topping and retracing. The same goes for back in 2017 and 2018. Bitcoin tops, it retraces, that's it. That's where the excitement happens throughout the market. So when you're looking for like your explosive gains to happen in altcoins, you're looking for it to happen when Bitcoin's producing some type of top. And right now it's trying to figure out, what does that look like? If you think that Bitcoin is just going to continue marching and this is just the beginning and we're going to keep going and we're going to hundreds, guess what? There's no evidence to say that altcoins would actually do well in that environment. At least not like your typical alt season that you may be thinking of. Like, sure, you can gain 40, 50% and do something standard, but not the stuff that we're used to where it's like massive, explosive, parabolic moves that happen in the altcoin market. Those only happen during tops. Even if you're an XRP holder, go study your XRP chart, put it versus Bitcoin, and you tell me where it happens. Here, I'll do it for you. Here's the Bitcoin chart from 2013 to 2025. Here's the XRP price chart since it started. This bull run for XRP happens what? When the top of Bitcoin is coming in. This bull run for XRP happens when? When Bitcoin is expanding into a new all-time high. Years in a bear, expands in a new all-time high, XRP goes into a bull run. Where does this bull run happen? It happens as Bitcoin's topping and retracing. Where does this one happen? When Bitcoin is topping. Where does this one happen? As Bitcoin is expanding and breaking into a new all-time high after a multi-year bear. Every single bull is met with either 1, Bitcoin topping, or 2, Bitcoin expanding. Topping, topping, expanding. So looking for topping behavior and trying to figure out what's it going to look like. Are we going to do this into a retrace? Are we going to do this into a parabola? It upsets anybody thinking about it. Like if you're an XRP holder and you're looking for a parabolic blow off top to happen, guess what you're looking for? You're looking for the top of Bitcoin. You're looking for either a retrace or the peak to happen in here. And so this is why we focus on it and talk about it. I'm very data oriented on saying, I fight against all the narratives and the nonsense that comes out in there and just try to paint the picture of looking at it through this type of lens. Market dynamics, how they all happen together, when they happen, the timing of them, and saying, you know what's the other thing that we have to have happen in order for this to occur? We got to have the Russell 2000 breaking out. You got to have the Dow breaking out, right? So you've got a lot of things going for you, but it makes sense that we would be looking for a top for Bitcoin. I just don't think you have really the evidence to say which one you're getting currently right now. I think you can actually argue either one, but you can't really do it until we see evidence of it dipping down even further than where it's at right now, because it could still just be a parabola, and even then doesn't even matter, one or the other. But this dynamic is historically favorable for the altcoin market, and the way the altcoins are acting is very much like these things are still shifting aggressively. And our Bitcoin dominance is insinuating the same thing, that all bull market floors for the Bitcoin dominance have been broken. The Bitcoin dominance has entered into a bear market on the weekly time frame and just about ready to do it over here on the monthly time frame as well. So the structural behavior over here on Bitcoin, still a little wishy-washy, but you still have exactly what you would want to be seeing over in here in the altcoin market and the Bitcoin dominance and the total market cap and macro markets. I'm just waiting to see if Bitcoin's going to give us a parabola or a retrace. And the only reason I care about that is for me to have conviction when I say that I'm taking that action within those 30 days to say, hey, we're back out. I can now count 5 very clean waves. And due to that being the 5th wave that I can count and it's very clean, that terrifies me and I'm selling. Or for me to say, hey, we've done what I thought would end up being the marker of a bear, and we've seen the Bitcoin dominance continue to fall as we've gotten into a retrace. We've done this 2 times before. I'm terrified and I'm taking action. That's the only reason I'm looking at Bitcoin in the first place, because the Russell breaking out is historically very good for the altcoin market, but it doesn't give us a signal on where the literal top of it comes in at. That historically comes from Bitcoin. So as we enter into this new week, we enter into a very exciting and optimistic time for what I believe to be for the altcoin market for the next month or so. I always try to show you guys exactly why. Never it's like guru stuff or anything that I've hidden from you. It's always these reasons why I'm showing it to you. I'm excited for the altcoin market because it's very clear what's going to happen with the Bitcoin dominance here as we enter into September. This thing is going to cross and it's going to get even more momentum behind it. And we already see on the weekly time frame that it slipped into a bear. We don't tend to do that unless if we're entering into a really exciting time for the market. But what it also implies too is that it is not unusual to think the top of Bitcoin is going to be coming in right in here, right? But to see this type of behavior happening on the indicators, on the weekly and on the monthly, Well, I don't have to be a guru. I can just show you that and show you those relations, and you can understand that's exciting for me for the altcoin market. I can show you what happens over here when the Russell 2000 breaks out and what happens to the altcoin market after that. We just got it. We got it at the exact same time the Dow did. That's exciting. Those are historically positive markers. But if we want to see a move happen like this for the altcoin market, it usually will only happen in two circumstances: in an expansion for Bitcoin or as Bitcoin's producing its top. So we're waiting on Bitcoin to tell us which one are we doing. Is Bitcoin going to be having a parabolic top, or is it going to have a retracement style? Don't know right now. We'll see how $109,000 reacts. But I'm really only using Bitcoin as an additional tool and indicator for justifying why I'm going to sell when I end up doing it. Like I just mentioned, either I see a parabola or I see a retrace. That's going to be it. None of this stuff changes what's happening over here on the dominance, what's happening here with Ethereum or the total market cap or XRP or Binance Coin or Solana, you name it. Bitcoin represents like 3% of my portfolio. I'm 97% allocated to altcoins. So this is just being used as a tool to justify when it's time for me to do something. I don't think you have the evidence of it yet. And I think you absolutely could argue this thing's going to go parabolic if $109,000 holds. That means it's just a wonky, long drawn out ABC correction. That's an expanded flat where you just sweep the highs, you sweep the lows, you liquidate when you hit the lows, like we just saw. Literally theorized about this exact thing before because we've seen it before, getting down to like 110, right? It's not like it can't just be exactly this that was written about in the newsletter. So I don't want to spook you by any means by saying that's the case. But, you know, if this thing starts dipping down and starts heading down in here, well, I've got to have a thesis, right? And so that's what my thesis would be if we start whipping down in here. Otherwise, it's still just right on cue of how you could do just exactly this, go down and sweep that 109, 110 after sweeping the high. And so far, it's really just that, hitting 110.5. So point being, macro-wise, everything looks good. Bitcoin's a little wishy-washy. Bitcoin dominance looks awesome. You still have the altcoins. You have Ethereum pressing the highs. We seem like we're right on the brink of some really exciting times throughout the altcoin market. The question is just going to be, is it going to be into a parabola with Bitcoin or into a retrace with Bitcoin? And time will tell with Bitcoin, but we've got what we need in macro to happen right now. We're just having to patiently wait for those evidences to show up. And when they do show up, to just still remember, like when you're tuning into this channel, like I know, like, man, everybody wants time predictions, right? And like if 30 days passes and you're like, have you done anything yet? You said you were going to do it. I don't know yet, but I'm real mindful of it, that it could be that fast, right? And that's the point I'm trying to make. Like if Bitcoin goes parabolic or if Bitcoin goes into a retrace, just being mindful, man, we're in a phase in the market where things could happen really fast. It could happen within 30 days and they happen within 30 days when we did it right here. So buckle up. It's very exciting. We'll see how this week progresses, and hopefully we actually see the kickstart fire off down in here for the altcoin market, as it did actually take about 3 days for it to do so back in November of last year. Hopefully that's all it takes this time. So Bitcoin, definitely nothing to run and tell mom about at right now with where we are. And for all you know, that's the launch pad, because we've looked at this so many times and you know it. We've broken out of here. We've shown the evidence of it, I think, 4 different market environments where this happens and this is where the market rips. So I get it. There's red out there after a big Sunday liquidation, but still, the bigger picture of everything looks great. Until proven otherwise, it seems like we're right on the brink of the market actually getting explosive. And so like when I go through my checklist of things of being like, all right, well, we need to do this, 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 and this in order for it to be exciting, we've really like checked off everything. And just the last thing here is for it to actually just escape into the high. And the second it escapes into the high, what happens? The crowd pours in, the insanity pours in, all that good stuff happens. And we're just like ticks away from it happening. We have the Bitcoin dominance collapsing. We have Ethereum back at the highs. You have the Russell 2000 and the Dow Jones broken out. Bitcoin, regardless of whether it's a retrace or a parabola, it's a topping pattern to me. We have the narratives to go along with it for retail to be pouring in due to rate cuts. All it's going to take is one fat green candle over here in the altcoin market, and we will see the crowd pour in aggressively. And I reserve the right to change my mind. But my thoughts are, today, as we speak, on August 25th, that the next 30 days are probably going to be very exciting for this market, because things we're waiting for were for a trigger. to get that Russell 2000 to flash through that major moment. We got Ethereum to break through the 4,000. The Bitcoin dominance on the monthly time frame. The last little tidbit is to get that guy to escape. So we'll see if we can get that this week, because I was kind of joking about it with my wife earlier this morning. As you know, we're going through the comments and stuff because we approve all the comments on the videos, and it's like all week, right? Rabble, 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 rabble. Woo! And it's still just so fascinating to see that we can have that type of sentiment swings still happen even when we're just way up here. But either way, it seems like we're at a dynamic shift in the market from Bitcoin to the altcoin market, and we're getting the flashes over there with triggers setting off for the Russell 2000. So we'll keep our eyes on it throughout the week, you guys. Of course, you could check out the newsletter over here at blockchainbacker.substack.com. Each of these included an audio voiceover recording that I personally record after I record them. The most recent one is 26 minutes long. You can check out bcbacker.com with over 40 videos and 11 hours of content teaching you how to set up your own charts and indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. There are links within the descriptions of each of my videos to the newsletter at blockchainbacker.substack.com and to bcbacker.com. Otherwise, have yourselves a wonderful day, and hopefully this week turns into very exciting. But all right, that's it. I'll catch you guys on Wednesday. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.